We're here today with Candace Plattor, an addictions therapist in private practice in Vancouver, Canada, and she works with clients globally using Skype and the phone. She actually works with the families of the loved one and loved ones of those who are struggling with addictions. Big topic. Today we're going to talk about how to stop enabling an addict. So Candace, hi, welcome.
Hi Laura. Hi everyone.
So to stop enabling an addict, where should someone start?
Well, I think probably the first thing is to begin to understand the difference between enabling somebody and actually helping someone. Because an enabling act, like giving an addict money, that kind of thing, just doesn't help. And so when you can learn about what actually helps, it's easier to stop enabling because you may not have known what else to do. So it's also important for loved ones. If you are a loved one, then you understand what it is that you're feeling. You're feeling a lot of shame, a lot of responsibility. You know, in fact, most loved ones, until they start working with somebody like me, they believe completely that they are responsible for their addict's addiction. And I'm here to tell you that nothing could be further from the truth, because addiction, you know, even though people call it a disease and even though there's brain involvement, and that's very true, and even though it affects the organs and, you know, there's a physical component to addiction, all of that is true. It's not the kind of disease that something like cancer is. You can't just stop having cancer, or diabetes or something like that. I have Crohn's disease and I've had it for over 40 years now. And I need to take really good care of myself, and I do that, so I feel a lot better. But I can't just say to myself, gee, I think I just won't have Crohn's anymore. It doesn't work that way. But you can do that with addiction. You can say to yourself, I'm just not going to do this behavior anymore. Some people think that once an addict, always an addict, and I myself choose to be clean and sober. I have 29 years clean and sober. That's a choice I make. I believe that addiction, much more than being a disease, is a choice. And what I mean by that is I don't think that anybody says to themselves, gee, I think I'll be an addict. You know, I mean, I sure didn't. And I don't think anybody would say to themselves, well, that would be really fun. Let's just be an addict or an alcoholic or, you know. So I don't see addiction as that kind of a choice. But I do know from my own experience and clients I've worked with in the last 25 years that there comes a time when we are in our active addiction. There comes a time that we know that something is really wrong. Something's really wrong in our lives. We know that. We know that we'd like to make some changes, but we're scared to. We don't know how to. We don't want to give up our drugs. We don't want to give up our comfort zone. And when we don't give that up, we're making a choice to not give it up. If it wasn't a choice, think about it this way. There wouldn't be millions of people like myself, and maybe like some of you, who are in recovery and have been for a long time. We choose that. So no matter what you've done to your addict, for your addict, with your addict, you are not responsible for the choices that your addict makes. You're just not. You can't be. It doesn't work that way. And the other thing that you need to know is that for every one addict, we touched on this in the other video, that for every one addict, there are usually 10 to 20, sometimes more, people who are negatively affected by that person's addiction. So you think about it, there's mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and grandparents and cousins and aunts and uncles and neighbors and friends and fellow students and doctors and even therapists. I mean, there's just, so every time you're walking down the street, Everybody you see, pretty much everybody you see, 99% of the people on the street, in the restaurant, in the coffee shop, on the beach, they're not wearing a sign that says, I'm negatively affected by an addict's addiction, but they are, or they know somebody who is. And most loved ones don't know that because there's so much shame that they feel, they don't talk about it enough.
Yeah. So if one wants to help an addict make a different choice, start to see it as a choice, and I guess also make a choice to become a recovering enabler as well,
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
then how can they help that addict make a different choice, and how can they make a different choice?
Okay. Well, that's such a great question. The enablers need to know that they've been enabling in order to stay in their own comfort zone, because they don't want to have, most enablers are people pleasers. They don't want to deal with conflict or anger from somebody else. They don't want to have, they just want to keep the waters smooth. And especially if you're dealing with somebody who's rageful, that's the last thing you want to do is change what you're doing to make them rageful. But you can learn how to deal with people who are angry in a healthy way. And if you're not willing to come out of your own comfort zone, you can't really expect an addict to come out of his or hers. It's like the whole family needs to heal from this. The whole system, whether it's friends or neighbors or colleagues or whatever, everybody needs to see what their part in this has been so that it can finally stop and get resolved. So, loved ones need to understand that they've been doing the wrong things for the addict out of love, out of not knowing what else to do, out of fear, but nonetheless, they've been doing the wrong things. And it keeps the addiction going. So if you can allow yourself to be, to kind of paraphrase Gandhi, to be that change you want to see, and for you to role model what it's like to come out of a comfort zone, your addict will respond to that.
So if the enabler is ready to stop enabling and they want to help the addict make another choice, how do they know that the addict is not going to just be giving them lip service?
Hmm.
They're really ready for what I've heard you say, active recovery.
Yes, and sometimes you don't know whether an addict is manipulating you or not. Am I right? I mean, because addicts are really good at manipulating people. So they could be lying to tell you what you want to hear so that they can get what they want. The message that you need to give to an addict who's still in active addiction basically goes like this. We love you. I love you. I understand now that I've been doing things that haven't been helpful to you. And we're really sorry about that. We didn't know what else to do. We've been working with somebody. Now we know what we can do differently that will really help you. So we are not going to support you anymore if you choose to stay in active addiction. When you're ready to be in active recovery, just let us know. I mean, don't waste our time. You might want to name that. Don't waste our time. When you're ready, tell us. And we will do whatever we can. If we're in a position to financially help you, we'll do that. We'll do what we can for you when you're ready to do what you can for yourself. And this is not a punishment. This is because we love you. And if you say that often enough to the addict, and you learn how to set the consequences and the boundaries of continued active addiction, they start to get it. And they start to respect you a lot more.
And so when the enabler says, we're not going to enable you anymore, basically, we haven't been very loving and all that, and we want to help you, what is that help the enabler is supposed to give?
Well, when the addict comes and says, okay, I'm ready. I've reached a bottom. I'm ready. I don't want this life anymore. Because The addict doesn't usually get to that place until the enabler starts making some changes. So please understand that it's not bang, it's going to happen. It's a process, and you work with somebody like myself to get to help an addict become as uncomfortable as possible staying in active addiction. This is what you want to do. You want to get them as uncomfortable as possible. You don't want to give them a cushy bed. You don't want to give them a nice hot shower and all their meals cooked for them and laundry done, and they don't have to contribute and they get to call you whatever they want to call you. You make it uncomfortable for them to continue these kinds of behaviors. And then when the addict gets to a place of saying, okay, done, then you say to the addict, okay, well, maybe what you can do is go on the internet and look up some treatment centers, some rehab centers in our area, and do some research and bring that back to me. Or, we have an expectation of you that you'll start going to 12-step meetings or whatever. We have certain expectations of you to follow through, that you're not to sleep all day, that you're to go out and find work or go to school or go to a program, get yourself clean. Okay? And we will support you in whatever ways we can if you're doing what you need to do.
Wow, powerful.
It's very powerful.
And what I'm wondering is if the enabler is, that's going to take something of a pattern change for the enabler, but are you recommending that the recovering enabler work with someone to help them walk through this?
Absolutely, because, there are so many avenues of help for addicts. There are so few for the loved ones. And if you think about what I said before, that for every one addict, there's all these other loved ones, and they're not getting the help they need. If an addict goes to rehab, I'm adopting your language. If an addict goes to rehab and does his or her own work and comes back into a family situation that continues to be really dysfunctional because the parents, the families, the siblings, the spouses haven't done their own inner work and nothing much has changed, the probability of relapse is much higher. Wow. So if you want your addict, the addict you love so dearly, to change their lives, you need to change yours. And often you need to do it first. So yes, you work with me. You work with somebody like me who works with loved ones in a wise and compassionate way, who knows what to do, knows how to help you. And we develop a program for your particular family, for your particular need. This isn't a cookie cutter kind of thing where we follow the same steps for every family. It's not like that. and we get to the root of how, you're not responsible for the addict's addiction, as I said, but you probably most likely have been contributing to the addiction continuing. That's what needs to stop. As soon as you stop contributing, the addiction starts to go away. It's really amazing.
You have a story to give some of our listeners and viewers hope?
Yeah. I have so many stories of success with the families that I've worked with. And I have some where it hasn't worked. So I need to say that too, because unless people are really willing to do what it takes, it doesn't work. But there's a family that I've worked with for probably about a year. Usually I work with families for either 6 months or a year, because it takes a while to put all these new changes into effect. They had, these parents, first of all, were not getting along well. They were like at each other's throats all the time. And they were not united. They were not on the same page at all. They had a son adult children, a son who was using heroin daily, who was, just steps away from being on the street and perhaps dying, especially with the drugs that are out there today. And the sister, the younger sister, was addicted to alcohol and was bulimic. So she was binging and purging, and her body was just going through hell. Um, and and finally, they came to see me together, which was amazing for them. They came to see me, and they said, "What do we do? Our children are going to die." And I said, "Yeah, you're right. They probably will. So let's figure this out." Right? So I worked with them. They did the changing that they needed to do. We set the consequences. They learned how to do that. They learned how to maintain them, because setting a consequence isn't enough, especially with an addict. Got to maintain the consequence. And today, just jumping to the chase, I mean, I'm certainly nutshelling this, but today, the parents get along really well. They communicate, they talk to each other, they come to see me as a couple when they need to. Their son is now a professional filmmaker who films documentaries about things that are important in the world, like addiction. He's clean and sober, he has been for a while. He films ecological things like global warming and, food that's being thrown out into dumpsters that isn't being used and people are starving. So he's making films like that. He's, really contributing to society. And his sister is, she occasionally still has a problem with bulimia, but she doesn't drink at all, and her bulimia is not nearly as bad as it used to be. And she's on her way to a university, McGill, in Eastern Canada, where she's going to be doing a business degree.
Congratulations. That's huge. That's awesome.
It didn't happen overnight, but this is what we need to, loved ones need to understand, that it is a process, but it definitely happens and it definitely works.
Yeah, and having you to step them through. And it sounds like you'll meet them where they're at. So if somebody wants to, they see the hope now, they're like, I've tried everything. Can you help? And if so,
Yes, I can.
How can people find you and work with you?
The best thing to do, if you'd like to have a little bit of time with me, is there's a questionnaire that I have on one of my websites. The website is called lovinganaddict.com, lovinganaddict.com. And if you go there, you'll see this questionnaire is pretty short. All you have to do is fill it out and send it back to me. And once I get it, I'll get in touch with you wherever you live. Basically, if you have internet access, I can work with you. So, or a telephone. So what I'll do when I get this back is I'll read it, I'll take a look at your situation, I'll get in touch with you, and we'll have a free telephone consultation where you can tell me about what's going on for you, and I can maybe discuss with you how I might be able to help you. So you go to lovinganaddict.com, you fill out the questionnaire. My website is candaceplattor.com, and you can sign up for newsletters. You can read articles about being a loved one all over my website, and some other success stories and testimonials and things like that. I think the best way to start is to do the questionnaire and get that back to me, and then we'll set up a time to talk.
Wonderful. Thank you for the great work you're doing, Candace. And whether you're a loved one who of someone who's addicted and you're new to that, or you're at your wit's end because you've tried everything, be in touch with Candace at lovinganaddict.com, and we'll see you on another episode.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Bye, everyone.